guitar people. It's time for another episode of the Guitar Show. Today I've got my Gibson Explorer with factory installed Maestro vibrato bar. This was another Guitar of the Week from 2007. This was actually week 43, which was the second to last week, I believe, that they ran the program for the year. This guitar is one of the ones that actually, as you might have remembered me mentioning before, they were only going to make up to 400 of any of those particular models for any week. This is one of the guitars, may have even been the only one, where the entire production run of 400 was ordered by dealers and spoken for before any of them ever shipped. So this was a pre-order that I got. And I got it through an online vendor. You just could not go to a store locally and see one of these things, but keeping up on the news at that time as I did, I knew this was coming out. I knew I wanted it, and this guitar is a little bit special to me because of not anything I'll say significant and life-changing that happened while playing this guitar, but what actually did come of this was this guitar has installed on it what are called 57 Classic humbuckers. These are pickups that are made very similar to the original specification of the original humbuckers from 1957. The one big difference between the originals and these is that these are what they call wax potted. What that means is after they've assembled the pickup and all the wiring, everything's all put together, they take these and they dunk them in a wax bath. And what that does is the hot wax gets into all the voids in the pickup and keeps all the components from kind of vibrating or moving. And it's intended to cut down excess noise from handling and microphonic feedback and things like that. You might have noticed at the tail end as we were leading in here, I do get some buzz or some hum out of these, or some 60 cycle hum. That's, I think, kind of typical with these older style pickups. While they greatly reduced the hum that was coming through the devices as compared to the single coil pickups that were used at the time, they did still hum a bit. They weren't perfect, and particularly in this day and age where most of our lighting is from ballasted light sources like fluorescent lamps and things like that, especially with newer Department of Energy regulations demanding that we use different kinds of light bulbs that produce more pronounced magnetic fields around them. They do interfere with pickups, so you will tend to hear that a little more. But that said, once I got this, I'd always wanted to try these kind of pickups in one of my guitars, because prior to me even buying that first Flying V, my first Gibson, I had kind of, I'd been one of those guys that looked through magazines and went to websites and looked at various product specifications and things like that, and I knew that the once in a blue moon when the Gibson Custom Shop actually reissued Flying Vs and Explorers according to their original specifications, this is the type of pickups that they chose to put in them. And they were distinctly different from the stock hot ceramic pickups that are much more prevalent in the run-of-the-mill models. They're much more favored for modern, heavy styles of music. So I really wanted to give these a try, and during week 43 of 2007, they decided to release this model. So, like the other Explorer video that you might have seen, the configuration's basically the same. It's a mahogany body and neck, a rosewood fretboard, 22 frets, 24 3/4 inch scale length, 2 humbuckers, 3-way selector switch, volume tone knob, and oh, what's this? This is the factory installed Maestro vibrato, and all this is really it's a bent piece of sheet metal that provides a kind of spring tension to counteract the strings. It's screwed to the top of the body of the guitar, and this is a style that Gibson came up with back in the 1960s. because vibratos were becoming more and more popular, and people wanted them on their guitars. They would be equivalent to in the 1960s the way that guitar players looked at things like Floyd Roses in the 1980s. It was just a feature that everybody, especially well, the best way for me to put this is there are people who are very good at using these types of devices, and they incorporate it very heavily into their style of playing. And there are the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of young kids that are influenced by that and think that you need to have that sort of thing on a guitar. By the time I bought this guitar, I knew I didn't need this sort of a thing, but it was kind of a nice feature. This is very reminiscent in its configuration to a Explorer played by, I can't remember the guy's name, but he played in Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he had this kind of a configuration with a vibrato on it and the older style pickups. Of course, you know, his being an actual older Explorer, the body's probably made from Carina wood rather than mahogany. But other than, you know, these kind of features here, the pickups and the bridge, it's not terribly different than the stock Explorer that I have, and I will put a link for the video here if you didn't see it. And basically it plays the same, it balances the same, it's very similar in many respects. The color is a little bit off. This color is not natural mahogany, it is transparent amber, and it's a lighter color than the natural mahogany. I will just take a second here and pull the other one down to show you. Side by side, you can see that the one in my left hand is the natural mahogany. This is the transparent amber. It's much lighter, and actually with the metal pickup covers and the lighter color, it is actually much more reminiscent of a Epiphone Explorer model than what you would typically expect to see out of a Gibson as far as styling and color. It's very interesting actually to me that it looks so much like an Epiphone, but you know, Epiphone does make very good guitars, especially for their price point. You're not getting everything in an Epiphone that you get in a Gibson, but a lot of people don't need, myself included, all the things that a Gibson gives you. They're just nice to have if you don't have more pressing financial concerns. So that being said, the big significant thing with this guitar, as I mentioned before, was that the pickups are 57 Classics. What they are is they're lower output than the hot ceramic humbuckers that are in modern Explorers and Flying V's, and they don't have quite the same gain, but they do sound, to my ears, a lot better tempered, more even, more articulate, and more expressive when playing other styles of music other than high gain heavy metal. If I just strum a little bit here, I'll just I'll do some clean and some distorted just so you get a little bit of contrast. I'm a little bit rusty. But the clean setting, and that was the setting that I usually use to simulate as close as I can an acoustic guitar with an electric guitar. It sounded very open. You could hear all the kind of overtones and undertones of the various notes that I was picking out, and I thought it, you know, it definitely sounds a lot more, I'll say, interesting to listen to than playing the same notes on, say, the other Explorer, which is really more geared towards high gain and that sort of thing. And what you may or may not have noticed is, although, and this was counterintuitive to me at the time, right? But generally, when you're younger and you want to play loud, angry music, the inclination is I want to crank all the knobs up, max everything out, and that's going to give me the most aggressive kind of sound. And what I found is that's actually not the case. If you crank all the gain up all the way, your notes kind of blur together and you lose a lot of that definition. And this guitar with its slightly lower output pickups, what you get a lot of in this type of a setup that you don't necessarily always get out of the more traditional metal setups is even when you're at high gain, you know, you can hear a little more chiminess in the chords. And you hear a little more percussiveness when I do these muted chugging kind of passages like that. And it just gives a lot more depth and character to the sound, I think. And it's probably not going to come through on the microphone for the camera, but the way I kind of judge how deep and full the sound is coming out of a guitar like this, going through an amplifier like that, is can I hear it with my knees? And what that means is it producing enough low end to make the floor and my joints kind of rattle a little bit, right? Because you can hear it with your ears, but to really kind of transmit or send home that pressure wave that you get from a lot of low end, you know, to me, you got to be able to hear it with your knees. So that's it sounds silly, but that is kind of the way I look at it. As far as buying one of these today, you can sometimes find these on the used market. They sold in 2007, at the end of 2007, and into the beginning of, I'll say into the beginning of 2008, but really these were all sold out before they ever even shipped from the factory. But these were going for a little under $1,200 at the time. I'm not sure, I've not checked recently what these go for in the used market, because quite honestly I don't ever intend to part with mine. With the standard Tune-Matic bridge tied together with this Maestro vibrato, unfortunately it's not like a stop tail where you can raise and lower the tailpiece to suit your bridge height. So I'm basically stuck with the tailpiece at a fixed height, and if I have to raise or lower the bridge, it's going to, I can do that, but what it's going to have an effect on is it's going to leave me less able to control the tension of the strings going over the bridge. So as I raise or lower the bridge, what I need to keep in mind is if I need to lower the action significantly, the side effect of that, because the tailpiece is at a fixed height, is I'm going to, and this is the same with even with string-through guitars, where the strings run all the way through the body and you don't have an adjustable tailpiece, is that if I have to lower the bridge too much, I will run the risk of these strings becoming slinkier and slinkier, perhaps to the point where they feel a little bit flabby, even when tuned to pitch, compared to what I'm used to playing at. I mean, they'll still be tuned to pitch, they're the right gauge, they won't get too horrible, but your hands will notice it. Your hands notice differences as small as you know, 0.001 inches as far as the gauge of the strings. You can tell a difference in the tension and the size of the string. So I mean, just by feel, everything that you change on the guitar is going to be significant. The samples that I played for you were a little bit of clean, a little bit of dirty, and you know, basically the guitar itself is a fantastic guitar. Like any other Explorer, it's extremely well balanced. Having this little device on here is a nice little kind of an added benefit when you need it, although, you know, I do have some issues with it becoming loose and things like that. This being a vintage style part, replacement parts, if you break part of this, are not always easy to come by. I have a bit of a stash of these plastic handle tips hidden away in my parts bin that I bought from kind of a liquidation from the original Gibson plant in Kalamazoo. So I have a couple of those on hand if this becomes brittle and I need to replace it. But I still need to be careful with the handle itself and the bridge. I'm sure it'll hold up to normal use, and worst case scenario, I believe I can buy replacements through allparts.com for this type of a bridge, which for that matter, if you wanted to retrofit something like this to your own guitar, you could. But that's it for now, so we'll see you next time.